Hi, everybody. Elida Zweidler-McKay here from Engaging Leadership. Last week, I talked with you a little bit about dealing with the sense of people starting to kind of drift a little bit, maybe losing their momentum for work as everybody adjusts to life in this new world where we're dealing with the coronavirus situation. What I've been seeing over the last week in talking to my clients is less that sense of drift and more getting back to a sense of overwhelm. A lot of workplaces are now kind of going back to expectations that are closer to business as usual, even though everybody's working in these new situations. And alongside those expectations, folks are also needing to manage having children at home, and high schoolers maybe getting back to class, or college students getting back to class. So, and all of that, of course, on top of the ongoing news and information that's coming out and anxiety that people may be feeling around the coronavirus itself. So it's like business as usual, but with these extra components piled on top of it, which what I'm seeing among my clients is causing a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and a lot of overwhelm. So I talked in my first video about some ways to undo the anxiety. So I'm not going to go there today. What I'm going to talk to you about today is creativity. So it may seem like a strange thing to tackle, but let me put it to you this way. Um, we are in a period of severe and serious transition. So William Bridges wrote about the transition zone. And basically the idea is, we have our way of working and the way that we're used to doing things in the world. And then when there's some big change that happens, we go through a period of unfreezing, where all those ways that we used to work no longer quite fit. All those things that we knew about how things were going to happen or what would happen start to come apart a little bit. And that leaves us in this middle ground called the transition zone, where we're not yet to the new world, but we're still in this place of unfreezing. And we can approach that circumstance as something to be afraid of, something to shrink back from, something to fear, or we can see it as an opportunity. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, how to really use this time, this unfreezing, as an opportunity for you to get really creative. There are lots of levels, and we're going to talk about that as we go forward. So one of the places where you can use this period to get creative is to think about your own daily habits and routines. So, if your old pattern was get up, get breakfast, get the kids out the door, get in the car, commute to work, be at work, work at your desk for lunch, or maybe grab lunch with your friends, commute home, get dinner, whatever, like that routine. A lot of pieces of that routine don't apply anymore. You don't have a commute, you're not getting your kids off to school. So this is a real opportunity to create a new routine and to think creatively about what is the work-life schedule that's really going to work for you right now. And it may be that traditional work hours of like 8 to 5 aren't quite the right fit anymore. If you've got to take some time in the middle of the morning to hang out with your kids, or make sure that your teenagers are up and getting on their schoolwork or whatever, it may mean that instead of working these big long chunks of morning and afternoon with maybe a break for lunch like you would do in an office, maybe now your new routine is smaller chunks of work, where you do something for yourself, and then and get yourself going for the day. And then you take on a chunk of work, and then you have some real break where you play with the kids or walk the dog. I don't know if you heard my dog, he's rattling in the background going, "Good idea, mama, let's go." So instead of thinking of it as a work day, you could think of it as work chunks. Now, one warning I have for you about that is when you are working at home, and I think I said this before, but I'm just going to say it again, one of the biggest challenges is leaving work behind. So if you follow this new pattern, if you create a new pattern for yourself that's more chunks of work interspersed with chunks of life, which is a great thing to do, I want you to make sure you also still have an off time at the end of the day, or at least you know what those chunks are and you've planned it, so you're not just finding yourself sucked back into work all the time. But that's one opportunity for creativity, is to think about, what is your ideal schedule for the day? What kind of routine would meet the needs that your company is asking you to meet, and that your team needs of you if you're leading a team? Like, when do you need to be available for them? But then in between that, how can you build in some refresh time, some relaxed time, some walk time, exercise time, whatever it might be, so that instead of working your traditional 8 to 5 or whatever those hours are, could you rearrange that a little bit? And is that one way to be creative? The other place where you can be a little bit more creative would be to start to look at your ways of working with your team, whether that's the team of people that report to you, or maybe a team of peers, or a team that you report into. My guess is that there are some patterns in those ways of working that could be shifted now. And some of them may need to be shifted because of our new circumstance, but some of them you could just take this opportunity to shift them anyway, even if they don't have to change because of what's going on right now. So if you're in a team where the team meetings have gotten kind of blah and they don't have a lot of energy in them, and they're not really addressing the kinds of work that sort of moves things forward, maybe now's the time to rethink, what do we want this meeting to be for? How do we want to use it? What is the outcome that we want to get from having this group of people get together? Do we have the right people in the room or not? There are also ways of working around meetings that have to do with how you capture notes from the meetings or how you follow up. Does your meeting have a structure of some kind of set agenda where you spend the last 10 minutes agreeing on next steps and capturing them? Like all those really good meeting practices for making sure that people are making really good use of their time, and also you're clear about what to do next, become especially important as people are working more remotely. And so if those aren't already in place, if you don't already have a rhythm for that, maybe this is a really good time to rethink that and use the fact that we're now working in a different kind of way, and in a different kind of environment to talk about those kinds of things on your team. And related to that, not necessarily just in meetings, but are there changes you could make or ways that you could get creative about how you're coordinating your work with other people? So much of what we do in an organization um, has implications for people in other parts of the organization. And when you're working remotely, it's especially important to think about that, because the opportunities for kind of informal coordination, running into somebody in the hallway and saying, hey, I thought you should know about this, really go down. So are there ways that you personally could get more creative about how you're coordinating your efforts with other people, or getting input from them, or reaching out to other people to kind of brainstorm different ideas? This is a great time to be connecting, to be building those relationships, to be building those collaborations, so that you're using this period to really strengthen all those bonds that are going to make it easier to get your projects through, to get your work done, both now and when we come out of this situation. And then the last thing to sort of be thinking about is, are there ways to get creative about what you're working on? So for many of us, what we're working on will not be significantly different now to when the crisis is over. But for some people, your customers may be experiencing some kind of changes. They may have new needs, and whether that's your internal customers, if you serve an internal kind of function like HR or um, accounting or something, or your external customers, like if you're in marketing or customer service. But this could be a really great time to be thinking creatively about what's going to be different in our customers' world when we come out of the situation. What's different for them now? And are there things that we could be adjusting in how we're serving them? I imagine that most outward facing functions are already starting to think this way, but I invite you, if you're in an internally facing group, to also be thinking about this. What's changing in their world, and what can we do maybe a little bit differently or a little bit better to meet those changing needs, to meet that changing experience? So all kinds of opportunities for you to get creative about your own life, about your team life, and about your organization and how you're serving your customers, that this could really be a good opportunity to make some space for. Which brings me back to the first point, which is if this is a period where everyone is having to do all the same work as usual, plus take care of their kids and homes and worry about, relatives and family and the evolving situation, and get creative, that's going to be pretty stressful. So the first part is really important, that you get really clear about what's the work that you might be able to let go of, what's the routine that used to serve you that maybe isn't serving you right now in this particular setting? And how can you adjust that to make some more time for this kind of creative thinking, for this outlet for you to be thinking more expansively and more broadly about your work and about the work of your team? Because, one of the things we know is that it's easy to get sucked in. Like once you pick up a routine, it's easy to kind of stick with it. So I really want to invite you, especially to be thinking about your day to day routine. And a piece that I'm hearing from a lot of my clients is that they're using their breaks in between working on things to check the news. I really want to encourage you to not let that become your routine. It was okay if you were doing that for the last couple of weeks because things were changing pretty rapidly. Really listen to me, believe me, find a way to structure your day so that your breaks are rejuvenating for you and not just sucked into the news or social media version of the news, which is just going to make you crazy. This is an opportunity for you to dig deep in yourself, to find your strength, to find your creativity, and to lead yourself and your people, whoever's reporting to you, whoever your colleagues are, whoever you're working with, into a better place. But that's only going to happen if you start with yourself and you start by really connecting to your own sense of what's possible. So, hope this is helpful. If you're finding it challenging or you'd love to talk more about it, you want to brainstorm some things with me, feel free to book a call with me at zmcoach.net/call. And if you have ideas for topics you'd like to see me cover, feel free to post those as well. I'd be delighted. All right, take care.